Hey, hi. In this video, I'm going to show you how to build CRUD operation API with using Django REST framework, that is DRF. As you see in this PPT depicts my demo. Here, this picture depicts how does DRF, that is Django REST framework, will work, and it also highlights very important components of DRF. So, as usual in my videos, I'm going to walk you through this demo. In the first part, I'm going to explain you like how does this Django REST framework works and helps us to do the CRUD operation, that is create, read, update and delete operation. And in the second part, I'm going to show you how we can set up from the scratch, how we can set up a project and also create an API application. And then we're going to see that how do we do CRUD operations with using the APIs. Yeah. All right, so with that note, let's directly jump to the first part of the video, that is how does these components work. Yeah. So as you see here, that is the outer box. It depicts so that is Django REST framework environment. Yeah. So in the Django REST framework environment, we have four important components called URLs, views, serializer and modules. Yeah. As these important components is nothing but these are all like basically files in your Django REST framework project. At a layman term, you just need to understand there will be files like url.py, views.py, serializer.py and module.py. Yeah. So these files, what we'll do is these files will help us to achieve the original CRUD operations at your databases. Okay, and that is to using the DRF APIs. Yeah. So under the hood, how does it works is, for example, say whenever we hit the HTTPS request with using Postman, or it could be using the commandlets, or if we are using the maybe browser, so the request will first hit our url.py file. So whenever we create a project, underneath the project we will have a url.py file and also setting.py file. I'm going to explain those files in detail in the next in a real time when we create a project. So whenever the request comes to the url.py file, so there we will have a redirection saying like if the path of the URL is something like this, so or the API contains something path like this, you need to go to this particular viewset file, yeah, or views file in general. Yeah. And that views.py file will be created under under an application API folder, right? So this viewset is nothing but it's a place where you actually do a real CRUD operations with respect to your databases. Yeah. And there is also a couple of two more there's one more couple of resource out there here, that is serializer and modules. As you see here, the modules is the core component which is actually in real time interfaces with the databases and does the the creating the record, reading the record, updating the record, or deleting the record from a table from your database engine, right? So here in my case, I'm using PostgreSQL. I'm going to create a database and we're going to create a table with using the models. We're going to show you that so in the real term, so this is how the Django REST framework works. It's going to leverage the capability of model, or the basically the functionality of the model. The libraries, that library has the intelligence that it can interact with the Dynamo, it can interact with the database storages like PostgreSQL in our cases. Similarly, views. Okay, so then we might be wonder, why do we need serializer? So serializer is a component within the Django REST framework which actually converts the input given from the HTTP request. Say you are creating a record. So when you are creating a record, you will be sending a payload as the input or as the parameter. So that payload should be converted into Python readable format, so that it can use that readable format and try to insert into the PostgreSQL database in our case, right? So serializer is a component which will help us to convert the data type or convert the payload into a required format, so that which will be easy for you to, or which will be easy to insert into a table format, and vice versa. For example, say if you're reading a data from your database, and once you are returning a database, say you are running a select star from this particular table, right? So it's going to give the data in a certain format, and that data need to be converted back into a JSON format, right? So that's the reason. So this serializer is a component which will help us to convert to and fro of the to and fro conversion of the JSON format, which is required at the at interaction with the database model. Yeah. And also that is how basically it works. And finally we see the response at the view file, and that is where we call it as a HTTPS response. Yeah. So under the hood, if you remember these four important components, you will basically understood, how does the CRUD operations happens at DRF. Yeah. So with that note, we'll directly jump to the demo part of this particular lab session. So here I have already executed or tried my hands-on experience on this creating this demo API, that is creating the Django REST framework APIs with using with using DRF basically. Yeah. So this is my Visual Studio Code, and currently I have a folder called Django REST API. So this is the folder currently I'm going to show you, like how to set up the project, how to configure the an API application, and then we're going to see the CRUD operations being performed with the DRF. Yeah. So here for my reference purpose, I will be referring this particular project which is there in another folder, or which is another project altogether. Now we're going to create a separate independent project here. So with that, I have created a helpfile.txt file, so which is there under this particular folder. So in this file, I have articulated certain commands, certain steps that you need to follow to make this project working. Generally, to make the CRUD operations working. Yeah. So here there are prerequisite. The Python library has to be installed in your system. This is my Windows system. So what we do is, we need to install the Django REST framework libraries or packages. Right. So first one is, you need to have your system installed with the Django framework. So to install the Django framework, you need to run a command called pip install Django. Right. So if you have a pip3, maybe you need to use pip3 install Django, and then you need to install the DRF framework. So Django is like a baseline framework, and then on top of that one, we are using Django REST framework as well. So again, you need to run a command called pip install as I'm showing you here. And then we are also using the Python library for PostgreSQL, that is psycop z2. So as I showed you, in my case, I'm using my database as PostgreSQL. So I'm using that library because through with that, I can interact with the databases. Yeah. So this is as I said, this is my Windows system. I have already installed pgadmin 4 with the server options. My server is up and running fine. I have a Postgres engine is running. Underneath that PostgreSQL 15 engine, I have the databases, like that is the default PostgreSQL databases. I'm going to create a databases for this demo as well in a while. Yeah. So we are done with the prerequisite packages required for the Python, that is Django related packages. Yeah. So with that, now we need to jump for the next command. That is, next command is to create the project. So basically, once you install the DRF framework and Django framework in your system, automatically Django admin commandlet becomes activated, and you can use that Django-admin commands to interact with the Django framework basically. Yeah. So the next command that we need to execute is to start project. Yeah. So start project is a command within the Django framework which will set up a project, that is, which will set up a Django REST API project in your system. Right. So currently I need to set up that project in this particular folder. That's the reason I'm going to go, or I'm going to do a CD to this particular path. So I'm going to just copy this. Yeah. So I'm going to do a CD to this path. And if you see the if you see the ls of this one, it currently has helpfile.txt file, right? So now let's set up a project called, Cloud Quick Labs. Yeah, which is my channel name, that is Cloud Quick Labs. Yeah. So basically what I'm doing is I'm creating a project name called Cloud Quick Labs. Yeah, I'm just going to change the spelling. Cloud Quick Labs, yeah, which is my channel name basically. So this is my project. Underneath the project, you can have n number of API applications, right? So right now we are creating a project like this. So I'm going to hit enter. If you see here, it has created a folder called Cloud Quick Labs. Yeah. So if you extend the Cloud Quick Labs, you have a multiple subfolders with the same name, that is Cloud Quick Labs. Okay. So the Cloud Quick Labs, the subfolder underneath the main Cloud Quick Labs folder contains a very important configuration file, that is all Python file. It contains __init__.py file, which is a initiation file of any Python execution. Then you have some other setting configuration setting.py file, which is very important for our demo purpose. Then we have a url.py file, which is a master url.py file of the project. And then we have a wsgi.py file as well. Similarly, then we have at the root, we will have a manage.py file. So this is the file. This is the master Python file where the Python execution gets initiated and gets redirected to across the paths of the Python folders. Yeah. All right. So that is all about the project setups. Now I'm going to go to the next commands, and we're going to see the next part of the particular setup. So now I'm gonna set up the python manage.py. That is what I'm actually doing is, so if you see here, that is Django REST framework. Underneath that we have a file name called, so actually, so we need to run manage.py file, which is got created because I run the command Django -admin, yeah, or I set up project, that is Cloud Quick Labs, and that's the reason manage.py file of that project got created. So we need to execute that particular py file. So for that case, to execute that, I need to again do a cd to the my project folder, that is Cloud Quick Labs. Yeah. Once I do this, then I should be good to execute the next command, that is to set up my application. Yeah. So in my application, so here if you see the syntax, that is python manage.py and startup. Then after that, you need to give your application name. Yeah. So let's say my application here is, I'm interested in, say, cars. Yeah. So I'm creating an API called cars underneath my project called Cloud Quick Labs. Cloud Quick Labs is a big container. Underneath that, you are creating one small APIs. Yeah. Think like that. So here right now we are creating an application called cars. If you see here, cars is another, it has emulated another folder automatically. So that's how the benefit of Django REST framework, right? So it will automatically set up the required folder structure, set up the required file, and also the code within it. Okay, so that is like a ready-made for you. You don't need to run it, you don't need to type everything from the scratch. It is ready-made, right? We just have to modify these files and folder structures so that we are connecting the Django REST framework, and finally the required API will be working fine. Yeah. All right. So with that, we are actually done with the prerequisite setup, that is creating the project and creating an application, that is API application within the project. All right. So now I'm going to take you to the next important configuration changes. So now what you have to do is you have to be very careful and try to modify the files which I am doing in a sequential manner with the patience. All right. So now what we do is, we need to modify. The first thing is we need to modify our Cloud Quick Labs project files. The first file we need to modify is, the setting.py file. So in the setting.py file, if you go here, so we have installed applications and we also have the database connections. Yeah. So if you see the database connections, if I go to the database connections, so currently this is the database connections. Yeah, we're going to replace it with the PostgreSQL engines. Yeah. So I will take you back to the this is my database. Okay. So in that one we have a default configuration. So I'm going to copy this, and note that I'm in a project folder called Cloud Quick Labs. In that one I'm in a settings.py file. You can do the same thing from your side. And underneath that there is a variable called databases. In that one I'm just copy pasting default settings, and that contains engine, that is actually our Django DB backend PostgreSQL engine. And then this is the name of your DB. So in my case, I'm going to create a new DB. So I will go back to my PZ admin. I'm going to create a new DB called cars. So let me create a DB called cars. So I'm going to save it as cars. Here you go. So our DB got created, and if you go to the schemas and go to the public schemas, and if you go to the tables, right now we don't have any tables. Note that the tables in PostgreSQL framework, the tables in Django REST framework or DRF framework, the tables automatically gets created by the framework itself when you set the required configuration and do the certain commands execution. Yeah, we're gonna see that in a couple of minutes now. So here I need to change the name, that is now it is car, because this name means your database name. Basically this is the engine name which is by default, and the rest all is a username and password. In my case my password is root, so I'm going to change the value to the root, and the host name is local because my PostgreSQL server is hosted in my local system only. That's the reason I'm giving local host. Yeah, so this is the configuration we do, and we also need to update the installed apps. We also need to change certain things under the installed underscore apps, the list. So this is a list. So the things we need to change here is, I'm just going to see my another project which is actually working fine. So this is again like ours. There is another project called Django REST API. This is a project folder. If you go here, so in the settings you're going to see the same thing, right? If you see here, it's a database, and this is a root and blah blah thing we have done. Okay, now we're going to go to the this one. So here if you see, we need to add these installed app configurations. That is what I'm doing now, and I'm doing it now in my in our project called Django REST framework, and this is the Cloud Quick Labs. And currently I'm in a setting.py file. In the setting.py file, I'm modifying the installed underscore apps value. That is the list value. Yeah, so this is the global variable, and the value of the global variable is list. So in that one, we are just adding the these two values. So currently our application name is car, so you need to change it to cross, and the REST framework will remain same as it is. Yeah. So this is the one more. This is the configuration changes we need to do in the project settings. Okay. So now with that, now we go to the next one. That is the next file which we need to change is urls.py file. So whenever the url.py file gets created as part of your project creation, so this is what the configurations will be there in place. Now we're going to change this URL pattern value. So you see, this is again a global variable with a value containing with the value of list in Python terminology, and it contains a value called path. Yeah. So now we need to change that as well. So I will go back to the URLs again and just gonna copy this one. So basically what I'm doing is, we are gonna add one more path. So by default there is only one path for admin. Now we're going to add a custom path belongs to our API, right? So the base redirection path of our API will be API, that is say localhost, right? That is 127.0.0.0, right? Then /API. That's how it starts. That's the reason this is the API is nothing but it's a root path of your API. And then includes. Okay, so include is nothing but so I need to add includes here as well. So includes is a function within the URL. So I'm just gonna add that includes. Yeah. So includes is a function within the modules called Django.url. So if you go here, so while we are making changes with the .py files, other than settings. So in settings, if you go here, we don't have any libraries except path libraries. But if you go to the url.py file, we have a libraries being imported. That is Django contribute import admin. Similarly, Django URLs. So we have a Django contrib module being imported. We have a Django URL module being imported. So underneath that module, we have added a variable that is called URL patterns. In the URL pattern values, we have a list. In that one list, we have added API, and in that one we have now we are adding the employee.url. So that is, in our case, the application name is cars. So we need to change the values to the cars. So why I'm doing this? Because whenever the request comes, by default it will hit to this particular url.py file, and whenever it hits to the base URL like API /, then it has to go and check the file that is cars.urls. Yeah. So if you go back to this one, so this is how we have the configurations for another working application. So currently this is all about the configuration that we need to maintain in url.py file under our project files, right? This is remember that this is a project folder. Now we need to go to the cars.url. What does this means? Cars means this is a folder. Dot means within this folder. Yeah. So if you go to the cars, yeah, so if you go to the cars, if you expand the cars, underneath the cars you have a url.py file. So if we go to there is no url.py file, so we need to create that url.py file. Let me change this test.url file to so basically let me create a new url.py file because it is currently not there. We can create it, so that's a freedom. urls.py. So if you go here, what did we add? That is the URLs. Yeah. So the file name has to be URLs. Okay. So within this urls.py file, I'm going to close this test.py file. So the test.py file is for writing the test cases. I'm not going to use that file. So what do we need to keep now, right? So again, okay. So let me expand this. So if you go here and right now, what I'm doing is I'm just comparing with the already working project, and I'm also parallel explaining you. So what do we need to keep now in the urls.py file? So this is what we need to keep it. I'm just going to copy this. So currently the new file which I created with the name called url.py file, which is created in our API folder or our application API folder. So I'm going to just copy paste that. So here what we need to do is, so this is currently our API patterns starts with the cars. So we need to add the cars. So this is the car, and the car is nothing but ID. Yeah. So, and one more thing is, if you see here from the starting line number 1 and 2, we're also importing certain libraries, that is URL dot and we need a path. So again, if you remember the URLs, which is url.py file, which is created in the project folder, it also had a same libraries been imported. It's just like a, from URL file to another URL file, and from there the actual thing will happen. The actual thing will happen in a view.py file. Okay, so that is views.py file. So I'm going to change it to use.py file, and within the views.py file we're going to create certain functions, and later we need to write it here. Yeah. All right, so here view set, so let me create it as a cars.view set. Okay, this is the function, this is a class we are importing. Basically what we are doing is we are yet to create a class in this views.py file, but directly what I'm doing is from this views.py file I need to import my class called cars.viewset. So I'm just going to change the values like as expected, and whatever _as_ views function is there, so it will remain as it is. Yeah. So this is all the configuration we need to maintain in the url.py file. Now let's go to the views.py file. Yeah, so the views.py file, as I explained in this diagram, so this is like a heart of, this is like a basically heart of the complete application. That's where actually, so many business logic will be written in the views.py file. Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna just minimize my project. I'm gonna go to the viewset.py file. I'm just gonna copy the content because we are doing the same, we are mimicking the same working application. I'm gonna explain that applications in my context. Okay, in our application context. So why I'm doing is, so these are all the configurations that we need to maintain in the respective files. Whatever the things that you are doing at your side, you need to follow the respective configurations in the respective files. Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna minimize the other project, which is working project. So here we are doing a couple of things here. So that is serializers so we need to introduce one more file called serializers. Okay, so I'm gonna just copy this. So underneath the cars folder, that is our API folder, we need to create one more file called serializers. As we explained, the serializers.py file is a file which is actually converts the input into the Django framework readable, and also from the database to user readable, right? That is, it converts the JSON input given from the user into the Django understandable framework, which will be used to store in a database. Similarly, from the database to user readable format. So that is what the serializer job is. So yeah, so if you see here, so our views.py file is now working fine. Now I'm going to close up the other files because we are done with the configurations of the other files. Now we have a two important files, and basically three important files we need to make the changes. That is models, serializers, and views. Okay, so first one, let me make the changes in the model. So let's come from top to bottom order. So in the models.py file, so what we need to do is we need to create a model. When you say model in application context, it is nothing but you need to declare schema of your table within the databases. Yeah, so for that case, I have already declared some schema in the another working project. I'm going to copy that. So this is the schema we declared for relevant to that particular project. So we're going to mimic that same thing here. So underneath the underneath the models.py file, so I'm going to just copy paste it. So here what we do is, in our context it's a cars, right? So I'm going to just change it to cars. So what does that char means? So what does this means is, what does actually this mean in the context of Django is, so basically we are telling, hey Django, create a table in my database with the name cars, and the schema of the table has to be like this. That's what it means. Yeah. So here whatever the variables that you declare here, that is full name, employee code, mobile. So those are nothing but the column of your table called cars. So what I do is I'm going to say like car name, car underscore name, or just car underscore name, then the say car code, then you say like car model. Yeah, so say car model. So I'm going to create a very minimum very minimum so I'm going to create very minimum column that is bit relevant to the cars concept. So we created a car name, car model, car code, or say the car brand, car version maybe. Yeah. All right, so we created so basically we defined the schema of the table called cars. So and also within in front of those in front of those table column name, you can declare the constraint of your the table columns. Yeah. So here it says both all these characters, all these columns are allowed to fill the characters of these lengths. That's what it means. In the sense, if you're crossing more than 100 characters, it's gonna throw the error, right? So that's the reason you need to maintain the so basically you need to maintain the character limit up to these limits being mentioned here. So I'm going to keep these limits like this. Yeah. So with that, we are done with the models.py file configurations. Yeah. Now we go to the serializer. So serializer, as I said, this is like a conversion file. Yeah. This is the piece of component in the Django framework which will help us to convert. Yeah. So I'm going to just copy paste from the other project, and we're going to make it relevant in changes. Yeah. So in my cases, if I go to the models, in the models, so we have a class called cars. Yeah. So here what we need to do is we need to import that class here. How to do that is from dot models. So from dot models, in the sense, from this models file, I need to import a class called cars. Yeah. And then we are again declaring a class called, that is serializer class, with a name like cars serializers. Yeah. And this one we are actually keeping the model name equal to this is cars. Yeah. So what does this means is basically, you need to keep the configurations of this serializer.py file in the same pattern. Yeah. That is here from model.car. So we are actually doing, we are actually importing the class declared in the models.py file. And from here, we are actually declaring a class called car serializers, and that is inheriting certain the classes, certain the object classes. Yeah? So basically, if you see here, this is again a class that is from the model serializer class. We are actually from the framework or from the library serializers, we are actually importing a class called model serializers that is being acting as a the parameter to this particular class. All right. So this is the configurations of the serializer.py file. Now let's go to the next one. That is the final one. That is views.py file. So views.py file is a very very important. As I said, this is the file which is actually doing the the heart of your application, which is actually responsible for doing those CRUD operations, that is create, read, update, delete operations. Yeah. So in my case, if you see, this file has multiple libraries been imported. Which includes REST framework. Then you have a shortcuts. Then we are actually importing the local files, that is models and serializers. From those files, so we are actually importing those files. And then we have the REST framework views, response, and the status are also been imported like this. Yeah. So here I need to make the change relevant. So for that case, I'm going to make the change of serializers, while I will also explain the things. Yeah. So here we are declaring a class called cars view set. So cars view set in the Python Django framework, Django REST framework is, it means that, you are doing certain operations with respect to the data or with respect to the request. That's what it means. Yeah. So here view set. So when you, so here what you are doing is from the REST framework, where we are actually, you are actually importing a class called API view. Whenever you are whenever using that API view class as the parameter to the another class called cars.view, you can directly write the functions of HTTPS functions. In the sense, you can reuse or you can override the functions. You can override the HTTPS functions like get, put, post, right, and delete. Yeah, and that's what the down the line we'll be doing it here. If I go to the model, so we are using the so basically car version. Yeah, so let me do this. All right. So here, okay, so let me go to the views.py file. So this is very important things we need to make the changes here, right? So first one is get operation. So what does the get operation does? So in the sense, let's say you have a database. In that database, whatever the information are present or whatever the records are present, you need to retrieve that. So okay, and that you need to do with the API. Okay, so not with the like select star. Yeah, and that is what API does basically. Yeah. So here that is not in API terminology. That kind of operation will be done by HTTPS method called get, and in that get, we are actually passing the self, the self parameter. Then we have a request. Then here ID. So in our case, it is ID. It is not an ID. So it should be if I go to this one, so it should be car version. So let me keep the value as a car version. Okay. Or let's make it as a car ID only. So let me, to make it very simple, or to make it like very simple, car version. Yeah, let it be car version. So ID is nothing but, so it's okay. So let me tell you like this. Whenever we create a table with using Django framework, it does create the columns as per our definitions, but also it maintains a standard column called ID. which actually mean for maintaining the records uniquely. So let it be id equal to none. Yeah. So underneath that we have a module. So modules, in the sense, in the modules, if you go to the modules, in the modules we have a class called cars, right? So from the cars is nothing but you can consider it like as a it can consider as a PostgreSQL library for for Python. Yeah. So like that. So from model we are importing car as a class, and in that class we want to get an object which is equal to id equal to id. Yeah. That is nothing but you are actually interacting with the PostgreSQL database and getting the particular only one object where id equal to something like this. So in a layman term, this is nothing but select a car from this car table where id equal to this one. That is what it does. Yeah. It actually returns an item, and that item is nothing but so here that item will be passed as an input to the serializers. If you go to the serializers, we have a class called car serializers. I'm going to take you to that. So this is the car serializers. I'm going to change the values, and when it returns, so when this commands gets, when these function gets executed, that is the serializer class. This is a serializer module. Within that serializer module, this is a class. Yeah. So we are calling a class called cars serializer, and to that class we are passing an object, and the return type of that particular class is nothing but again one more object, and that object has the property called data, and that data is being passed as a response. You see, we are returning a response called status equal to success, data equal to the serializer dot data, and the status of the response is nothing but HTTPS response. Yeah. All right. Similarly, likewise, we are actually, let's say you want to retrieve all the data present in that particular table. So to do that, we have to follow the same same thing, but just a small changes. I'm just going to change that, like cars, wherever it is employees, I'm going to change it to cars. Yeah. And then wherever it is a car serializer, I'm going to change it to the car serializers. So here again, you are actually running the PostgreSQL query, that is get all select star, something like that. Yeah. So when you select star, it's going to return, it's going to return the SQL objects. That SQL object has to be passed to a serializer so that it can convert that SQL object into a human readable format. That is what the serializer is doing here through a class called serializer module. Through the serializers module, you are invoking a custom class called car serializers, right? And to that particular class serializers, we are actually giving the object called items, and that item is nothing but it's a model item, that is a model object. Yeah. And then that the output of that will be serializers, and that will be passed as a response, where from the serializers we are extracting the data. Yeah. So likewise, we are doing the writing the post, patch, and delete. I'm going to share this file. I'm not going to walk you through these commands. You're going to so that is how we are doing it. Yeah. So this is how we did for get. Now let me go to the cars. Yeah. So let me do the other changes. Okay. So for example, say car serializers. So I need to go to the car serializers. So here is a car serializers. I'm going to change it here. So I'm just aligning the changes, further changes. Yeah. So this is a car serializers, and then we're gonna go to the yeah. So this is a serializers. Yeah. Similarly, here is we need to change with the cars. I'm gonna just so wherever employee serializers is there, so I'm gonna change it to car serializers. You can do same thing in your application, so don't get confused. So I'm gonna just go to the another one. So all right. So now wherever it is employees, I'm gonna change it to my module class called cars. All right. So I'm gonna quickly walk you through these functions as well. This is cars, and this is also cars. All right. So we did see the get operation, that is HTTPS get operations. Now we see the HTTPS post operation. So the HTTPS post operation is nothing but it's going to create a record into a PostgreSQL table. Right. So in our case, the table name is cars. Yeah. So how does it happen? So if you see here, we are actually invoking a car serializer class, and to that class we are passing a parameter equal to data, that the data parameter which contains data that is came through a request. If I go back to this one, that is a request. That request has been passed to the views, and the views is sending it to the serializer. From the serializer, it will convert that the input into serializer data, which is suitable to insert into the PostgreSQL module. Okay. So basically, serializer is becoming like a refiner module basically. Yeah. So serializer is doing that. So once it is serialized, then it is validating whether it is a right data, and then it is clicking as a save. What does that say mean? In the sense, insert. Save is nothing but insert into a table. Yeah. All right. Then we are actually calculating the responses. Similarly, likewise, patch. Let's say you already have a record with a certain ID into your table. You want to update that. That is what the update operation is all about. So here, what we are doing is we are actually So first one, to update the record, you also first you have to retrieve the record, modify the required content, and then put it into back. Yeah, so that is what we are doing. First one is actually equivalent to the get operation, that is get a particular car object or car record like this, and then that output is passed to a serializer, and then you are validating the serializer and finally saving. That is nothing but you are actually updating the record. We're going to see these in a real time when I'm executing the project. Yeah. All right, then finally delete. So delete is nothing but it is actually invoking a delete method of the HTTPS. Likewise, we saw in the patch and post, the function name is equivalent to the HTTPS method, because as I said, we are passing a class called AppView from the request framework. Yeah, that's the reason you can directly use these functions, and these function gets overridden. Yeah, or methods gets override. Yeah, overwritten methods. In the delete, so you have a ID. We're actually, what we are doing is we are actually filtering a particular item. Say you want to, when you say delete, in the sense we want to delete particular ID. Yeah, so you need to pass that API, then you have a cars, then / you need to do a API ID. Then if you hit the method called delete, it's gonna delete. So this is what it does. Basically, it retrieves the particular object, a particular record from the table, and it executes a command called delete. And finally, if it is deleted, then it's gonna go to the return method and it's gonna return the responses. So this is what it happens under the hood. So I have walked you through the complete files and folder structure. Now time has come to execute the next commands and realize whether we are successfully created the API, that is our Django REST framework API, which is doing CRUD operation for us. Right. So next command that I need to execute is I need to make the migrations. What does that migrations what does that migration means in Django REST framework is that so when you execute a command like make migration and migration, which actually it compiles your module.py file and creates the table in the designated the PostgreSQL engine and designated database. It's going to create a table. That is what actually the make migration command does in the REST framework, that is in the DRF actually. Yeah, so I'm going to run the next command, that is Python manage py make migration, and then you need to give your API app name. In my case, my API app name is cars, so I'm going to give the name like cars and just hit enter. All right, so it is showing that the car view set from the cars, there is like a cannot import a name like car view set from the car. Okay, there is look to a small problem, so I'm going to modify that. So basically, if you see the cars and url.py file, so Cloud Quick Labs, okay, I'm going to go to the cars. So yeah, so this is under Cloud Quick Labs and cars. In the apps, and go to the URLs in the line number view set. So basically, car view set, it is not able to import the car view set. So need to check what is the what is the thing we need to modify. So if you go to the views, this is views. In this one, what is the function we are given? So this is the function I have given. So I need to give that back to the URL. So I'm going to just change it. So all right. So there is a small if you see here, the function name is changing. Yeah, that is the class name is changing from the views.py file. The name of my class is views cars view set. Yeah, so that is what it was complaining. So I just made the changes. You see it is detected. I'm going to just change the respective things. Whenever this kind of error throws, you just need to read the last line, that is cannot import, so the last line of your error message is actually tells what is the error happening. Yeah. All right. So in my case, we are lucky enough that, we have identified what is the right error. Yeah. So I'm going to just do a enter and we're going to re-execute the command called Python manage.py make migration and then our API name. Okay. So if I go to the txt file, I have, so this txt file will be shared in my GitHub repo. This complete folder structure will be shared in my GitHub repo, and I'm going to share this the GitHub repo link in this video's description. You can find it from there and try to learn the DRF, that is to build the CRUD operation APIs. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to just hit enter. If there is no error, which is good sign, it has set the job actually. So with that, we need to write one more command, that is we need to execute one more command, that is Python manage.py file. So I'm going to just hit enter. Here you go. The table got created. It looks like, so whenever you see these green mark, okay, which means that congratulations, in the sense your table got created. So we're going to go to the my PostgreSQL engine. So this is my PostgreSQL engine. In that one, this is our table which we created. Earlier I showed you that there were no tables. If I refresh this table, we should see the table. Yeah. So if I refresh it, here you go, my tables got created. There are so many tables that Django framework creates for us, that is auth, right? Then you have a Django frameworks. In that one, our important table is cars. The cars is like our business table, yeah. So this one, so I'm just gonna view all rows. So what do I'm doing is I'm just running a command called select star from the cars order by ascending. If I see here, you see, we have a column name, that is default column name called ID, car name, car version, and car models. Okay, so this is my table got created automatically. I have never executed any SQL command, but it got created. Yeah, it also so does when you do a create, read, update, and delete operations. Okay, so that's what we see now. So now time has come to run our application by running the command called python manage.py run server. So I'm gonna do that job right away. So if you hit the command called python -manage.py file, and then you're gonna see this URL getting populated. Just click on this URL. It's gonna take you to this particular file. Yeah. So currently it is throwing the error. I'm just copy paste. I don't like this basically. So I'm gonna open this in this particular so in my Google Chrome. So this is the final demo. So I need to open this particular URL in the Google Chrome. So I'm just gonna open this. That is http://localhost/800 port 8000 port. So if I'm hitting this, it is throwing the error. Why? Because it is telling that using the URL conf definitions, that is CloudQuick Labs URLs, Django tied to these URL pattern. In the sense, if you go here, that is what the Django is telling, right? If you go to the here, underneath the CloudQuick Labs, I'm going to minimize this. Underneath the CloudQuick Labs and CloudQuick Labs main project folder, there is a URLs. In that URL, it is detecting that hey, there is a 2 other paths are being defined. You might need to use it. So it is telling that this is not your right API URL. You need to append this URL with the other options, that is say API options. Yeah, so I'm gonna just hit enter. So this is also not right. So I'm just gonna say like APIs. All right. So it looks like so currently currently it does not has any record. So I'm just gonna try with the admin. Maybe admin get work. So I'm just gonna see the admin. So I'm just gonna, so basically our server is up and running fine, but there is a small problem in accessing the path. So I'm just gonna execute that admin. Yeah, here you go. So our admin page is working, which means that our application is up and running fine. Yeah. Now we need to make a call to our API, that is cars. I'm gonna just say cars. Right. So if you enter this car, so why does why does this particular API path worked? Because if you see here I'm telling API, from the API what I'm telling it is so here when the execution comes here, I'm telling hey, you need to go to this file, that is cars. Underneath the cars, you need to go to the url.py file. So underneath the URL file, again you have a identified paths. What are those identified paths? The identified paths are like cars, right? So if I see here, if I show you here, so first one, this is your root URL. Underneath the root URL, there is a one more bottom subfolder called API. After that, you need to hit the cars. Then only that is the place where actually the API gets started. Yeah. So basically, your root API URL is like this, right? Now time has come to do a records. If you see here, we have 4 functions being declared in our Django APIs, right? That is get, delete. All those APIs are been shown here. That is post and patch. Yeah. All right. So now we're gonna create a post now. So to create a post, we need to create this particular JSON object, and the JSON object should contain the key value pair, and where the key is nothing but your column name and value is nothing but the value you want to insert. To do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the models. I'm going to copy my my column name and put it in the form of a JSON. So whatever the value you are putting here, you need to put it in the form of JSON. Make sure that you are not missing any JSON properties. Yeah, so just do copy paste, and then we're gonna do this like this, and then yeah, so this way. Yeah, all right. And then finally we need to create one more. Basically we have 3 columns, right? And that's the reason I'm creating 3 key value pairs where the key is nothing but our column names. So I'm gonna just show this now here. I'm just gonna see this, and then we're gonna do the car model as well. So I'm gonna just copy the car models, and then here you go. So basically car name is say BMW. Yeah, so this is BMW, and then version is say version 4 or version 2. Yeah, and the model is something like say XYZ. And so this is the actually this is actually a body of a post command. Yeah, so if I do this one, just say post. Here you go. The data is inserted into the, so you see here it is getting a response called successfully inserted, and it has created ID like this, and this is what it happens. Okay, so earlier when I open the PostgreSQL command, it does not had any kind of records in it. If I rerun the same command, you see my data got inserted. Yeah, so likewise we are done with the post operations. Let's do patch operations. Okay, so to do the patch operations, what I need to do is I need to update the patch as well. Yeah, to update the patch, I need to pass the ID. So anything but which patch. If I go to the back to the patch code in the views.py file, so I will go to the patch code. Here it needs an input called ID. Yeah, so for that case, what I'm doing is I need to update a record where ID equal to 1, and I just need to update the columns like this. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. So I'm going to go back to the patch function. So this is the patch function. So what is a very good feature of the DRF is, so so basically whenever your application or whenever your API starts working, Django frameworks provides this ready-made inbuilt API, inbuilt UI through which you can test your APIs. You don't need to have maybe Postman are commanded, but it does helps you to basically test your API from the UI itself. And this UI is been ready made built in from the Django REST framework. I have not created any any HTML CSS file for this one, but this is made by default from the Django REST framework. Yeah, so here I need to modify the version 2 to version 3. Let's see if it modifies. Yeah, so I'm just going to make a changes. Looks like there is some error basically. So I don't know. So what is the error? Let's see what is the error. It says cars matching query does not. Yeah, so basically it says there is no cars. Okay, so if I go here, okay, so this is patch, right? So patch is nothing but ID equal to 1. So we pass ID equal to 1. So I'm gonna go back to this one. Okay, so let me go to the cars, select cars. So currently this one, so patching, so basically I'm missing the syntax. That's the reason it is not throwing. So basically I'm just going to modify it. I'm going to just try to modify it again with this format. Just say 4 version. Looks like it is modified. No, it's version 3, version 4. I'm just going to make it version 4 with the patch. Yeah, I'm just missing certain syntax, and that's the reason it's throwing there. It says the cars.model does not cars matching the query does not exist. So basically it is not matching the queries. That's the reason it is throwing the error. So so under the hood, so let me try one more time, and then later we can see the get operations as well. So if I go to the, so basically I'm missing the functionality of the particular is right. Yeah, so this is the int ID. Yeah, so cars. Okay, fine. I'm just gonna do the cars and then just say 1. So basically when you hit this command, basically it's actually doing a get operation. Yeah. Okay, so now let me do a patch operations with this ID that is containing ID as well. Okay, so let me modify this ID. So basically earlier I was not passing ID, right? So that's the reason it might be throwing the error. Let me try to give this way. So what we are doing is we are updating the car version from 2 to 3, that is v3, and let me hit it. Looks like there is a error again. So that says car.post. Viewset.car.post got an unexpected error argument called key ID. So if we go here, that is ID. So if you go here, that is patch. If you go to here, then the patch basically ID equal to none. Yeah, the ID value will be passed here. So I might need to use the question mark. So that's the reason. Let me see. ID question mark ID equals to 1. Yeah, and then so let me hit this. Here you go. So where ID equal to 1, and I'm gonna update the records. Yeah, so I'm gonna update the record again. Try to update the record again. So basically I'm missing the syntax. That's the reason I'm not able to run the patch command, which is nothing but updating the record. So I'm just gonna make the command like this, that is version 3, and then just let me hit the enter. Yeah, so it says again, it throws the error. basically what it is happening is, I'm just missing the syntax, that's all. But in your case, when you try it at the patience fully, it will work. So in the word job time, I'm just gonna go to the next one, that is getting. So if I go back and I just hit enter, so basically we are doing the get operations. If I hit the get operations, we are getting the all get operations. I'm gonna insert the one more records as well to just to so let me insert one more record. I'm gonna remove the ID and say like bench. So this is bench, version is 2 and the car model is this one. So this is bench. I'm sorry. Unfortunately I have inserted the record, so I'm just gonna just try to refresh it. So if you write whenever you're directly hitting, that is nothing but you are hitting the you are actually hitting the the get all operations. If you hit these commands, let's say you want to delete the particular ID, right? So how do you delete it? So you can delete it like this, that is where ID equal to ID equal to 1, and if you hit the delete, we should be deleting the record with the ID equal to 1. So if you see here, are you sure that you want to delete this car set view? Yes, I just want to confirm. Here you go, the delete got successful. If I go to the my PostgreSQL and run it, we should see the the two records. I'm just gonna see it here, so I'm just gonna hit it enter again. So I've just hit the enter. Here you go, it is getting the records, and just delete it. Are you sure that you want to delete? Yes, I want to delete. The delete got succeeded. So basically it is working. Under the hood, the APIs are working as expected. So so basically what we are doing is we are actually executing the commands. If I go to the the car, so when I delete it, so we are getting the HTTPS request to. Why we are getting is basically you see that we are actually deleting the function. All right. The finally last one is basically this is how under the hood it works, with a quite some other the things we can align in this functions. But in general so this is how our API works. And finally I'm gonna show you the get operation again. So if I hit the get operations, we are actually getting all. That is ID equal to all. So I'm just gonna do a Control Z and then hit enter. So this is how basically our code works under the hood. Now with that note, I have shown you the things need to be shown in this CRUD operation APIs. We saw that how does the Django REST framework is been built with using the main important component. We also did host a project. We created the project from scratch. We hosted the API application. Then we made the changes, and we finally saw that our API is working as expected. So with that note, I have shown you the things need to be shown in this video. Finally, a kind request, please do subscribe my channel. That would really encourage me a lot. With that note, thank you, thanks a lot, and see you in the next video.